Fear is a manufactured prison, not a natural state. What if I told you that the fear of speaking English is not something you were born with? It was installed in you, like a virus in a computer, slowly corrupting every attempt you make to communicate? Linguamarina, one of the most powerful English learning voices on the internet, understood something that most language teachers deliberately ignore. Fear of speaking is not about intelligence, it is about conditioning. From childhood, schools punish mistakes. Teachers mark red circles on wrong answers. Classmates laugh at mispronunciations. Over years and years, your brain creates an automatic defense mechanism. Stay silent, stay safe. But here's the brutal truth. Silence in English is not safety. Silence is surrender. It is you handing over your power to an invisible enemy that never existed in the first place. Linguamarina's entire philosophy begins at this foundation. Identify the prison first, then destroy the walls. She speaks about how Russian was her mother tongue, how English felt foreign and terrifying, yet she chose to walk directly into that fear, not away from it. That single decision changed her entire life trajectory. Immersion over perfection, the strategy of constant exposure. What if the reason your English is not improving is not because you lack talent, but because you are studying English instead of living it? This is perhaps the most shocking revelation in Linguamarina's approach. Traditional learners sit with grammar books, memorize rules, practice conjugations in isolation, and then when a real human being stands in front of them and asks a simple question, their mind goes completely blank. Why? Because they trained for an exam, not for life. Linguamarina's secret weapon is immersion. Surrounding yourself with English in every possible form at every possible moment. Watching American shows without subtitles, thinking in English before sleeping, narrating your daily activities in English inside your own head, ordering coffee in English, writing your grocery list in English. The brain is not a storage device, it is a pattern recognition machine. The more patterns of English it absorbs through real-life exposure, the more naturally those patterns begin to flow out of your mouth without conscious effort. Perfection becomes irrelevant when fluency becomes your muscle memory. The power of shadowing, stealing confidence from native speakers. What if you could literally steal the confidence, the rhythm, and the natural flow of a native English speaker and make it your own, completely legally, completely ethically, and completely free? This technique is called shadowing, and Linguamarina has spoken about it with an almost obsessive passion. The concept is devastatingly simple, yet criminally underused. You take a piece of audio, a podcast, a YouTube video, a movie scene, and you repeat every single word simultaneously as the speaker speaks it. Not after, simultaneously. You are not just practicing pronunciation, you are absorbing intonation, breathing patterns, emotional rhythm, the rise and fall of natural conversation. You are rewiring your brain's audio output system. What happens over time is nothing short of miraculous. You begin to sound like someone who has spoken English their entire life because your brain has logged thousands of hours of authentic native speech as its template. Linguamarina used shadowing to eliminate her accent fears, to build unstoppable speaking momentum, and to transform English from a foreign language into a second identity. This one technique alone can change everything. Public vulnerability, using social media as a courage accelerator. What if the most terrifying thing you could possibly do, speaking English publicly where strangers could judge you, was actually the fastest shortcut to fluency that has ever existed in human history? Linguamarina did something that most people would consider absolute madness. She did not wait until she was perfect. She did not wait until her accent disappeared. She did not wait until every grammar rule was mastered. She pressed record and she posted. She made herself vulnerable in front of millions of eyes before she felt ready, before she felt confident, before anyone told her she was good enough. And the result? The pressure of public accountability forced her growth at an accelerated rate that no classroom could ever replicate. There is a psychological phenomenon at work here. When you know others are watching, when you know your words are permanent and public, your brain activates a survival-level urgency to perform better. It is not comfortable, it is not easy, but it is extraordinarily effective. Social media, when used as a courage accelerator rather than a highlight reel, becomes the most powerful language laboratory ever invented. Identity shift. Stop being a person learning English. Become an English speaker. What if the single most powerful language learning tool in the entire world costs absolutely nothing, requires no app, no teacher, no textbook, and exists entirely inside your own mind? It is your identity. Linguamarina cracked a code that linguists and psychologists have studied for decades. Language fluency is not primarily a skill acquisition problem, it is an identity adoption problem. As long as you see yourself as someone who is trying to learn English, your subconscious mind will always treat English as foreign, as separate, as other. But the moment you make a conscious, deliberate decision to identify yourself as an English speaker, not a learner, not a student, not a beginner, something neurologically extraordinary begins to happen. Your brain starts filtering reality differently. You start noticing English opportunities everywhere. You stop translating from your native language and start generating thoughts directly in English. You stop apologizing for your accent and start owning your unique voice. This identity shift is not arrogance. It is strategic self-programming. Linguamarina did not become confident in English because she became perfect. She became perfect because she first decided to be confident. Keynote 6, the consistency code, small daily actions that compound into unstoppable fluency. What if becoming fluent in English had nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with natural talent, nothing to do with expensive courses, and everything to do with what you do for just 20 minutes every single day? This is Linguamarina's most practical and most underestimated secret: the terrifying power of daily consistency. Not 3-hour marathon study sessions that exhaust you and leave you demoralized, not weekend cramming that evaporates by Monday, 20 focused, intentional, immersive minutes every single day. The science behind this is both simple and staggering. The human brain builds neural pathways through repetition over time, not through intensity in a single moment. Think of it like carving a river. One massive flood of water does less permanent damage to rock than a small, steady, consistent stream flowing for years. 20 minutes of English listening, speaking, or thinking daily compounds over 365 days into 120 hours of practice, more than most university English courses offer in an entire year. Linguamarina understood that discipline is not glamorous, it does not go viral, but it is the only true path to fearless English fluency. What if the only thing standing between you and speaking perfect, fearless, confident English is not your brain, not your background, not your accent, not your age, but a single lie you were told so many times that you actually believed it? What if someone whispered into your ear every day from the moment you first opened a textbook that making a mistake is shameful, that your accent makes you lesser, that real English is only for certain kinds of people? And what if you believed that lie so completely that you sealed your own mouth shut before anyone else could? Right now, in this very moment, there is a woman who was once exactly where you are, terrified, silent, convinced she would never sound right, never feel confident, never belong in an English-speaking world. And she didn't just overcome that fear, she went to war with it. She destroyed it publicly in front of millions of people in a language that wasn't even her own. And now she runs one of the most powerful English learning channels on the entire planet. Her name is Linguamarina. And today, I am going to show you every single secret she used, the exact weapons, the exact strategies, the exact mind shifts that turned her fear into her greatest power. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will change the way you think about English, about courage, and about yourself forever. What if the fear living inside your chest every time someone asks you to speak English, that tightening, that panic, that desperate scramble for words that suddenly disappear, what if that fear was never yours to begin with? What if it was planted inside you by a system that rewarded silence and punished mistakes, by classrooms that marked your errors in red ink as though they were crimes, by a world that made you believe your voice was only worth hearing if it sounded a certain way? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something today that most people in this world will never hear, because most people are too comfortable in their comfortable prisons to ever question the walls around them. The wall you built around your English, the one that stops you from speaking in meetings, from ordering food confidently, from introducing yourself without your hands trembling, that wall was never built by your limitations. It was built by your conditioning. And today we are going to tear it down brick by brick using the strategies of a woman who did exactly that in front of the entire world without apology and without permission. Her journey teaches us the first and most devastating truth about fear. It is not a reflection of your actual ability. It is a reflection of your history. Every time a teacher corrected you in front of the class, every time someone laughed at your pronunciation, every time you opened your mouth and someone's eyebrows moved just a fraction of an inch upward, your brain logged that moment as danger. And danger the brain avoids at all costs. So it shut your mouth for you. It told you to stay quiet, stay invisible, stay safe. But here is what your brain never told you. Safety in silence comes at an enormous price. The price is your potential. The price is your career. The price is the version of yourself that could have existed had you simply refused to be afraid. The first move in dismantling this fear is understanding that it was manufactured. Fear of speaking English is not genetic. Babies do not come into this world afraid of languages. Children who grow up in multilingual households do not tremble when they switch from one language to another. The fear was installed, and which means it can be uninstalled. And the uninstallation process begins not with more grammar rules, not with more vocabulary lists, not with more sitting quietly and studying. It begins with action taken in the presence of fear, not after it disappears. Now let us talk about something that will fundamentally challenge the way you have been approaching English your entire life. Most people study English. They open books, they memorize words, they practice exercises in isolation, they perfect their grammar in their bedrooms, and then they step into the real world and collapse completely when a native speaker starts talking at natural speed with natural rhythm and natural idioms that were never in any textbook. Why does this happen? Because they trained for performance, not for life. They trained for the test, not for the conversation. And there is a catastrophic difference between those two things. The strategy that changes everything is immersion, not the passive, half-hearted kind where you occasionally watch an English show while also scrolling your phone, but aggressive, intentional, total immersion. It means thinking in English. It means narrating your own life in English inside your mind as you walk through your day. It means consuming English content not as a student observing from the outside, but as a participant living inside the language. The brain is a pattern recognition machine of staggering sophistication. Feed it enough authentic English patterns and it will begin to generate those same patterns naturally, effortlessly, automatically, the same way you never have to consciously think about how to walk, because the pattern is already burned into your nervous system. But even immersion alone is not enough to break the speaking fear. You need something more specific, more targeted, more surgical. And this is where the practice of shadowing enters the picture. A technique so powerful, so effective, and so underused that it borders on criminal negligence that it is not taught in every single language school on earth. Shadowing means you take a piece of authentic English audio, a speech, a podcast, a YouTube video, and you speak the words at the same moment the speaker speaks them, not after, simultaneously. You are not copying, you are inhabiting. You are forcing your mouth, your tongue, your breath, your rhythm to match the exact pattern of a fluent speaker. And what gets wired together over time gets fired together automatically. The accent you feared, the rhythm you envied, the effortless flow you thought was only available to people born into English, it becomes yours because you have given your brain no other option but to absorb it. And now I want to address something that most people are far too afraid to consider because it requires a level of courage that feels genuinely terrifying. Linguamarina did not wait until she was ready. She did not wait until her English was perfect. She did not wait until someone gave her permission or told her she was good enough. She pressed record. She posted. She made herself publicly vulnerable in a language she was still learning. And the results were not humiliation, as fear predicted, but acceleration. Because when the stakes are real, when people are watching, when your words are documented in public, your brain does not have the luxury of performing poorly. It rises. Not because pressure is pleasant, it is not. But because pressure is the forge in which real fluency is created. Think about what you are actually afraid of when you imagine posting a video or speaking in public or raising your hand in a meeting. You are afraid of judgment. You are afraid that someone will see your imperfection and use it as evidence that you do not belong. But consider this, every single person who has ever achieved mastery in any language, any skill, any craft, went through a public stage of imperfection. The difference between those who mastered it and those who didn't is not talent. It is tolerance for being seen while still becoming. The ones who became great were willing to be imperfect in public. The ones who remained mediocre waited in private for a perfection that never arrived. There is another layer to this that is perhaps the most psychologically profound, the most quietly revolutionary, and it has nothing to do with technique or strategy. It has to do with how you see yourself. Right now, if you call yourself someone learning English, your subconscious treats English as perpetually foreign, something you are approaching from the outside, pressing your face against the glass, wanting to enter but never quite arriving. But the moment you make a decision, a real firm, non-negotiable decision to call yourself an English speaker, the entire architecture of your psychological relationship with the language begins to shift. You stop translating from your mother tongue. You start generating thoughts directly in English. You stop treating your accent as an apology and start treating it as a signature. You stop asking for permission to speak and start speaking as though your voice belongs in every room, because it does. This identity shift is not fantasy. It is neuroscience. The brain performs according to its self-image. Athletes know this, soldiers know this, the greatest performers in every field on earth know this. The story you tell yourself about who you are becomes the ceiling of what you can achieve. Raise the story, raise the ceiling. Tell yourself you are already an English speaker who is simply becoming more refined, more nuanced, more powerful, and watch how every practice session, every shadowing exercise, every conversation, every piece of content you consume begins to accelerate toward that identity you have claimed. And finally, the principle that ties every other strategy together, the invisible foundation without which none of it works, is consistency, not intensity, not passion, not inspiration, consistency. 20 focused minutes every single day will do more for your English fluency than a 10-hour marathon session once a month. This is not motivational talk. This is how the human brain literally builds competency, through repetition over time. Through the slow, steady, unglamorous accumulation of small daily actions that compound into something extraordinary. 20 minutes of English today, 20 minutes tomorrow, 20 minutes next week. 365 days later, you have logged over 100 hours of practice, more than most university language courses provide in a full academic year. And because that practice was daily, your brain never had the chance to forget. It reinforced, it deepened, it kept the pathway open. The woman whose strategies we have explored today did not start with advantages. She did not start with money, connections, a perfect accent, or the absence of fear. She started exactly where you are, afraid, uncertain, convinced that the gap